Usually when you look at a revered historical figure or, the author of some foundational spiritual text, there's this underlying assumption of just pristine purity from day one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You expect them to be basically born a saint.
Exactly. It's a bit like looking at a massive suspension bridge,
Yeah.
right? You see the steel cables and the concrete pillars, and you just know it was engineered to be exactly that magnificent structure from the very moment the blueprints were drawn.
Right, there's a plan.
Yeah, you expect a straight, clean line of historical development, like they were born holy, they lived holy, and then eventually they wrote something holy.
Well, and that linear trajectory is super comforting. I mean, for all of us, it creates this neat, digestible narrative where the extraordinary individuals of history are just fundamentally different from the rest of us from the moment they take their first breath.
Right. They're on another level entirely.
Yeah, but the reality of ancient epics, and specifically when we're talking about the Ramayana, it completely shatters that neat linear comfort. The origin story of its author is just, it's one of the most violent psychological and spiritual paradoxes on record.
It really is. So for everyone listening, in this deep dive, we are looking at Sage Valmiki. This is the man universally recognized as the Adi Kavi, which means, the very first poet of humanity.
The literal inventor of poetry.
Yeah. Right. This is the individual who composed 24,000 verses of such profound spiritual, moral, and literary weight that they've literally shaped the cultural bedrock of millions of people for millennia.
It's hard to even overstate his influence, really.
It is. Yet the man who wrote those verses did not start out meditating in some peaceful ashram. He started out as a ruthless, violent highway robber.
A literal terror on the roads.
Yeah, a man who terrorized pilgrims, committed innumerable murders, and just existed in a state of such deep, dark criminality that his physical vocal cords were supposedly incapable of pronouncing a holy name.
Which is just a fascinating biological and spiritual detail that we'll get into. But, I mean, it's a metamorphosis that forces us as readers and researchers to completely reevaluate our understanding of human nature, and personal accountability and even trauma.
So true.
We are essentially tracing the journey of a desperate man pushed to the absolute brink of his biology by a 12-year famine. And then he undergoes an ego death so profound it requires thousands of years of sensory deprivation to process.
Thousands of years. It's just wild.
It is, culminating in the sudden, explosive birth of human poetry triggered by a moment of involuntary empathy.
Okay, so we have to start deep in the ancient timeline, before Valmiki was a household name. We are looking at the 24th Mahayuga.
Right, going way back.
Yeah, and for anyone listening who's familiar with the cyclical nature of time and these traditions, we are in the transitional period moving out of the Satyuga and into the Treta Yuga.
And that transition is crucial context here.
It really is, because the Satyuga is fundamentally an era of profound, inherent truth and spiritual connection. Like the world operates in a state of high harmony. But as we transition into the Treta Yuga, that perfection begins to fracture.
Yeah, the moral and physical environment basically starts to degrade.
Exactly. And right on that fault line, the man we know as Valmiki is born. But, he's not born a criminal. He's born as Riksha, the 10th son of Sage Prachetas.
Which places him squarely in the Brigu lineage. And I mean, this is not a minor detail.
Not at all.
The Brigu lineage is essentially the apex of ancient spiritual aristocracy. They are these revered seers known for their immense command over cosmic knowledge, asceticism, and Dharma.
It's like being born into a family of Nobel laureates, right?
Oh, exactly. Riksha is born into an environment completely saturated with the highest levels of philosophical discourse. The expectation is absolutely that he will inherit this mantle. I mean, he is the biological heir to profound spiritual purity.
But the degradation of the Treta Yuga catches up to him almost immediately. When Riksha is just 3 or 4 years old, wandering near the Chitrakuta region, he gets kidnapped.
Such a brutal turning point.
Yeah, he's taken by a childless Nishada, a member of a local hunter-gatherer or tribal community, and his biological father, Sage Prachetas, attempts this exhaustive search, but just comes up empty.
He just vanishes into the forest.
Right. So this boy, genetically wired for sagehood, is entirely removed from his pristine environment and dropped into the deep forest. And he's given a new name, Lohajanga.
And that name, Lohajanga, it translates to one with iron legs, which is just, it's a stark indicator of his new reality.
Iron legs. It really paints a picture.
It does. He is no longer a sheltered scholar in training. I mean, he's a survivor now. He is physically hardened by the unforgiving terrain of the forest. He's taught to track, to hunt, and to kill for sustenance.
So his entire nurture completely overwrites his nature.
100%. And as he grows into adulthood, he takes another name, Ratnakara, meaning keeper of gems. He marries a woman from the Nishada community, has children, and assumes the role of the patriarch.
He builds a whole life.
He really does. He's living a tough, primal life, but within the context of his environment, it is a stable, functional existence.
Until the environment itself collapses.
Right. The Great Famine.
Yeah, a massive, catastrophic 12-year drought and famine strikes the land. And we need to emphasize this isn't just a bad harvest. This is an apocalyptic event for a hunter-gatherer.
Oh, yeah, it's game over.
The forests turn to dust, the rivers dry up, and the animal populations either die off or just migrate completely out of reach. So the standard accepted ways of surviving are suddenly gone.
Evaporated.
Exactly. And Ratnakara is faced with the ultimate biological nightmare. He has an aging adopted father who is completely dependent on him. He has a wife, and he has young children. And he just has to watch them slowly begin to starve.
And this is the psychological pivot point of his entire existence. The famine creates an absolute vacuum of morality. I mean, when the earth stops providing, the social contract disintegrates.
It's pure survival mode.
Yeah, Ratnakara is forced into a corner where his duty as a provider violently collides with his basic humanity. To feed his family, he takes the weapons he previously used to hunt boars and deer, and well, he turns them on human beings.
He stakes out the trade routes and the pilgrim paths.
Exactly. He becomes a highway robber. He stops travelers, strips them of their food, their wealth, their gems, and if they put up even the slightest resistance, he murders them.
Okay, let's unpack this because he crosses the ultimate line here. But it's the justification for crossing that line that makes his psychological profile so deeply fascinating.
Right, the rationale he builds.
Yeah, there is this concept of a Patkala Dharma that comes into play here in the source text. It's the idea that during times of absolute emergency or distress, like when the fundamental structures of reality break down, the standard rules of righteous conduct, or Dharma, have to bend to accommodate survival.
And a Patkala Dharma is a deeply nuanced philosophical concession. It acknowledges that you really cannot hold a starving man to the exact same ethical standard as a man sitting at a feast.
Obviously not.
Right. When life itself is under imminent threat, the hierarchy of duties shifts. Survival basically becomes the paramount directive.
But there's a catch with Ratnakara.
A huge catch. The critical flaw in his logic is how he weaponizes this concept. He uses the famine not as a temporary, desperate measure, but as a blanket absolution for continuous, horrific atrocities.
He builds a psychological fortress.
Yes. He tells himself, I am not a murderer. I am a father. I am a son. I am merely executing my duty as a provider in an era that gives me absolutely no other options.
It's a profound, incredibly modern mechanism of denial. I mean, when reading this, it immediately calls to mind the trajectory of Walter White in Breaking Bad.
Oh, that is a perfect comparison.
Right. You have an ordinary man, a chemistry teacher, who gets a terminal cancer diagnosis. And that diagnosis is his personal 12-year famine. It is an existential threat to his family's survival.
So he pivots to extremes.
Exactly. He begins manufacturing meth, stating clearly that he is doing it solely to secure his family's financial future. But as the external pressures mount, his actions become increasingly monstrous.
Just horrifying stuff.
Yeah, he poisons people, he bombs nursing homes, he manipulates everyone, and every single time he crosses a new horrifying line, he falls back on the exact same mantra, I am doing this for my family.
The comparison really highlights the mechanics of externalized blame, though, I mean, there is a crucial divergence here.
What's that?
Well, Walter White, as we eventually learn by the end of the show, is fundamentally driven by a repressed ego and a desire for power. His family excuse is essentially a mask for his own hubris. He liked it. He was good at it.
Right, he admits that eventually.
Exactly. Ratnakara, on the other hand, seems genuinely trapped by a pure biological imperative. He doesn't want to build a crystal meth empire. He just wants to put food in his children's mouths in a dead forest.
So his core motivation is slightly more pure, even if the actions are equally bad.
Yes. But the psychological shield functions the exact same way. Ratnakara truly believes that because his primary motivation is the survival of his dependents, the karmic weight of his violence will be distributed among them.
Like splitting a restaurant bill.
Yeah, exactly. He assumes they are all spiritually underrating his crimes because they are consuming the physical profits of those crimes.
But assuming collective moral responsibility is a very dangerous game. especially when you never actually check the terms and conditions with your so-called co-signers.
A catastrophic oversight on his part.
Yeah, Ratnakar exists in an echo chamber of his own violence for years. The feedback loop of killing, feeding, and justifying sustains him perfectly, until he runs into a force that simply refuses to play by the rules of his localized reality.
And that disruption arrives in the form of the Saptarishis.
The seven great sages.
Right. These are cosmic entities of immense spiritual realization who just happen to be wandering through this decimated forest. And Ratnakara, operating on pure instinct, leaps from the underbrush, weapons drawn, and attempts to hold them hostage.
Like a standard Tuesday for him.
Basically, yeah. He demands whatever meager possessions they carry, utilizing his standard threat of violence.
And the sages look at this terrifying, blood-soaked man with his iron-like legs and lethal weapons, and they laugh.
They actually laugh at him.
I mean, they find him amusing. That has to be an unbelievable shock to his system. He is the apex predator of this territory, and these unarmed ascetics treat him like a confused child.
Well, they laugh because they possess clear vision. They don't see a terrifying highwayman. They see a man drowning in a delusion of his own making.
They see right through the scary exterior.
Exactly. And Sage Atri, who steps forward to address Ratnakara, doesn't engage in a moral debate about the sanctity of life. He doesn't preach.
Which is surprising. You'd expect a sage to give a sermon.
You would, but he doesn't. He identifies the structural load-bearing pillar of Ratnakara's entire psychological defense system, and he strikes it with surgical precision.
I love this part. Sage Atri listens to Ratnakara's standard speech, the whole I kill to feed my family routine, and he poses a devastatingly simple challenge.
That's so brilliant.
He says, you commit these horrors, and you claim the spiritual burden is shared by those who benefit from the food. I want you to go home right now and ask your parents, your wife, and your children if they will willingly accept an equal share of the sin and the karma you are accumulating on their behalf.
Atri effectively calls his bluff, and he tells Ratnakara, hey, we will wait patiently right here in the forest for your return.
Just supreme confidence from the sages.
Oh, absolutely. It is the ultimate test of cognitive dissonance. Ratnakara is so thoroughly convinced of his own narrative, so sure that his family operates under a collective karmic contract, that he accepts the challenge without hesitation. He leaves the sages and walks back to his camp.
So he gathers his family together. He looks at the aging parents he kept alive, the wife he provided for, the children he saved from starvation. He lays it all out.
He expects a thank you, really.
Right. He asks them directly, you know the blood on my hands. You know the terror I inflict on the roads to bring you this food. Since I do it entirely for your survival, do you accept your share of the spiritual damnation?
And their response?
Their response is a unanimous, unequivocal no.
It is an absolute structural collapse of his reality. I mean, his family articulates a fundamental, inescapable law of existence here.
It really is a profound moment.
They essentially tell him, look, it is your inherent duty as a householder to provide for us. How you choose to execute that duty is entirely your own jurisdiction.
We didn't tell you to murder people.
Exactly. They say, we consume the food to sustain our bodies, but the actions you take to acquire that food belong to you alone. We will not take on an ounce of your karmic debt.
I try to imagine the sheer isolation of that moment.
It must have been crushing.
Think about taking out a massive predatory loan to buy a beautiful home for your family. You forge documents, you lie, you risk everything to get it. Your family loves the house, they enjoy the security.
They're living comfortably.
But years later, when the authorities show up with handcuffs, you look at your family and expect them to stand between you and the police saying, hey, we all enjoyed the house, so we will all go to prison together.
Which obviously never happens.
Never. Instead, they look at you with pity and say, we love the house, but your signature is the only one on the fraudulent contract. This is your prison sentence.
That analogy is spot on. And this raises an important question regarding how easily we use our responsibilities to others as a shield for our own moral compromises, right?
Well, all the time.
That isolation is the core mechanism of karma. You enter the world as a singular entity, and you bear the consequences of your specific actions alone. The intention to help others does not magically erase the objective reality of the harm you cause.
It's a harsh truth.
Very harsh. The realization that he has been operating under a massive self-serving delusion just completely shatters Ratnakara. He realizes he hasn't been a noble martyr for his family at all. He has just been poisoning his own soul while his family watched from a safe distance.
And the amazing thing is, he doesn't argue with them. He doesn't throw a tantrum. The psychological fortress is gone, and he is just left standing in the rubble.
He accepts it instantly.
Yeah, he immediately turns around, walks back into the forest, and finds the Saptarishis sitting exactly where he left them. He drops his weapons, he falls to the earth, and surrenders completely. He realizes he is drowning, and he begs them for a way out.
And this total surrender makes him an empty vessel, ready to be reshaped. But, the sages understand that reversing decades of deep, violent conditioning requires way more than just a sudden change of heart.
It's not just a switch you flip.
No, not at all. The physical and energetic residue of his actions is literally baked into his physiology. So when he asks for a path to redemption, the sages instruct him to chant the divine name Rama. It is a fundamental, purifying mantra.
But he physically cannot say it.
Right.
His vocal cords, his tongue, his very breath have been so thoroughly corrupted by screaming threats and tasting violence that the pure phonetic structure of Rama is impossible for him to articulate.
It's a fascinating block.
It sounds almost metaphorical to a modern reader, but the tradition treats it as a literal physiological blockage, doesn't it?
Oh, it is deeply literal within the framework of ancient Indian philosophy. Actions are not just ethereal concepts, they generate distinct energetic qualities.
Can you break that down a bit?
Sure. So Ratnakara has lived a life completely submerged in tamas, which is the quality of darkness, inertia, and violence. The name Rama is purely sattvic, luminous, pure, and harmonizing.
So it's like trying to run advanced software on a broken computer.
Exactly. His biological hardware is entirely incompatible with that software. His tongue is thick with tamas. The pure vibration of the mantra simply cannot pass through his corrupted throat.
He is a ruined instrument. He finally possesses the desire to play a beautiful symphony, but the strings are rusted shut.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
The tragedy of that moment is immense. But the Saptarishis don't abandon him. They utilize an incredibly sophisticated linguistic and psychological workaround. They tell him, if you cannot pronounce Rama, then chant the word Mara.
And Mara is a word his tamathic tongue knows intimately. It carries the connotation of death, destruction, and the illusion of the material world.
It's right in his wheelhouse.
Exactly. It perfectly aligns with the frequency of his violent past. The sages basically meet him exactly where his physiology allows. They instruct him to sit in one place, close his eyes, and chant Mara, Mara, Mara continuously without interruption.
And this is where the audio illusion, the sheer mechanical genius of the mantra takes over.
The hack.
The ultimate hack. Because you say Mara slowly, it means death. But if you repeat it rapidly with intense dedication, the syllables inevitably bleed into one another.
Ray, try saying it fast.
Mara, Mara, Mara naturally reverses into Rama, Rama, Rama.
It's incredible.
He is tricked into chanting the divine name. His conscious mind is focused on the concept of death, but the mechanical rhythm of his tongue is generating the frequency of the divine.
He is effectively hacking his own nervous system. And the level of dedication he brings to this practice is just beyond human comprehension. He sits in the forest and enters a state of deep, unyielding meditation known as Nirvikalpa Samadhi.
Okay, we need to explore Nirvikalpa Samadhi, because this isn't just sitting quietly with your eyes closed, focusing on your breath. This is a radical alteration of human biology and consciousness.
Oh, absolutely. In the yogic tradition, samadhi is the ultimate state of meditative absorption. And nirvikalpa means without alternatives, without fluctuations, or without form.
So the mind just stops.
Yes.
Yeah.
When a practitioner enters this state, the mind completely ceases to generate thoughts. The consciousness entirely withdraws from the external sensory organs.
Wow.
The eyes do not see, the ears do not hear, the skin does not feel temperature or pain. It's a complete shutdown of the external interface.
So the body essentially goes into a state of suspended animation.
Precisely. The metabolic rate drops to an imperceptible level. The breath becomes so subtle it is almost non-existent. The life force is withdrawn from the extremities and concentrated entirely inward, locked onto the continuous internalized vibration of the mantra. He achieves total biological stasis.
And he maintains this stasis for thousands of years.
A time scale we can barely fathom.
We are back to the cosmic time scales of the yugas. He sits there so motionless for so long that the earth actually reclaims him. Dirt accumulates, seeds germinate, and eventually a massive colony of ants discovers this immobile structure and builds an enormous anthill directly over his body.
He is entirely entombed.
Yeah, and the anthill is a profound symbol of incubation here. He is sealed within the earth, undergoing a massive energetic purification.
Like a caterpillar in a chrysalis.
Exactly. The friction of the continuous internal chant of Rama is slowly burning away the heavy tamasic karma of his past, refining his consciousness back to its luminous original state.
And fast forward millennia, the exact same Saptarishis are traveling through that exact same patch of forest.
Talk about perfect timing.
Right. They come across this colossal anthill. But because they possess elevated perception, they don't just see a mound of dirt. They perceive a subtle, pure vibration radiating from the center of the earth. They hear the crystalline resonance of Rama, Rama, Rama.
We recognize the frequency. They know the highway robber they left behind is still in there.
It's a reunion of sorts.
They approach the anthill, take water from their kamandalas, their ascetic water pots, and pour it over the structure. As the dirt washes away and the insects scatter, the figure inside is finally revealed.
But the violent hunter is gone.
Completely gone.
The man who emerges is radiating light. He has attained the status of a Brahmarshi, which is the absolute highest echelon of spiritual realization.
And upon his emergence, the sages bestow a new title upon him, because he was essentially born out of the anthill. And the Sanskrit word for anthill is Valmika. They name him Valmiki.
Valmiki, he who is born of the anthill. It perfectly encapsulates the concept of the Dvija, or the twice-born.
Break down that concept for us.
Sure. His first birth was biological, right? He was pulled from his mother's womb as Riksha, a creature of instinct and circumstance, who devolved into Ratnakara. But this emergence from the anthill is his second birth.
A birth of pure consciousness.
Exactly. Forged through unimaginable discipline. The anthill was the literal womb of his spiritual gestation. Ratnakara died in the dirt, and Sage Valmiki was born.
It's such a beautiful visual. So Valmiki establishes an ashram on the banks of the Tamasa River. He is now a venerated teacher, possessing absolute internal tranquility.
A perfect state of peace.
But tranquility alone is static. He is a perfectly tuned instrument, but he has no song to play. To fulfill his cosmic purpose, that perfect peace needs to be agitated. It needs a subject worthy of his new frequency.
And that agitation arises in the form of Sage Narada.
Yes. Narada is basically the cosmic communicator. He is a divine traveler who moves seamlessly across dimensions, constantly bridging the gap between heavenly designs and earthly realities.
He's the ultimate messenger.
He drops into Valmiki's ashram, and after the customary honors are exchanged, Valmiki poses a highly specific, almost demanding question.
He doesn't ask Narada for the secrets of the universe or the nature of the divine, which you might expect.
Right. He asks a deeply grounded human question. He wants to know if there is a single human being alive on Earth right now who possesses 16 very specific qualities.
And this list of 16 qualities is essentially an impossible checklist of human perfection.
Let's hear them.
Valmiki asks for a man who exhibits absolute integrity, unwavering bravery, perfect righteousness, deep gratitude, uncompromising truthfulness, dedication to principles, pure fearlessness, absolute purity of mind, total command over Vedic knowledge, boundless charity, complete control over his senses, the ability to give without expecting return, deep meditative capacity, perfect nonviolence, a soft-spoken nature, humility, a willingness to sacrifice, perfect tranquility of mind, a steadfast refusal to accuse others, a total lack of vindictiveness, and absolutely zero ego.
Okay, let's actually analyze that list because it is full of massive internal contradictions.
Oh, it's totally paradoxical.
Right. How can a person possess absolute bravery, which implies a willingness to confront danger and inflict necessary force, while simultaneously maintaining perfect nonviolence and a total lack of anger?
It seems impossible.
And how can someone have zero ego, yet possess the steadfastness to rule a kingdom and enforce laws? Valmiki is setting an impossible trap. He understands the theory of Dharma perfectly, but he is demanding to know if this theory can actually survive contact with reality.
And what's fascinating here is that Valmiki is asking for the ultimate stress test of philosophy. Because, I mean, it is easy to be nonviolent when you are meditating alone inside an anthill.
Exactly. Nobody is bothering you.
Right. It is incredibly difficult to be nonviolent when you are tasked with protecting the innocent from actual predators in the real world.
So how does Narada respond to this impossible checklist?
Well, Narada, understanding exactly what Valmiki is searching for, just smiles and confirms that such a paradox exists in human form. He points to Prince Rama of Ayodhya.
The protagonist enters.
Yes. He describes Rama not merely as a good king, but as the literal embodiment of Dharma walking on two legs.
Now, from a narrative standpoint, introducing a perfectly flawless character sounds like a recipe for a terrible story.
It sounds super boring, honestly.
Right. If Rama has zero ego, perfect tranquility and never gets angry. Where is the dramatic tension? A character without internal flaws usually has nowhere to grow.
And that is the defining genius of the Ramayana. The tension does not stem from Rama struggling with his dark side or learning to overcome his flaws.
So where does it come from?
The tension is entirely external. The epic asks what happens when an entity of absolute, uncompromising perfection is subjected to the most chaotic, unfair, and brutal circumstances the world can manifest.
It is a test of structural integrity.
Yeah.
You take the hardest material in the universe and you apply maximum crushing force to see if it splinters.
Exactly. How does a man dedicated entirely to truth react when his father is forced, through a manipulative political plot, to exile him to the dangerous forest on the very morning he is supposed to be crowned king?
Most people would revolt.
Right. And how does a man with perfect tranquility navigate the horrifying reality of his beloved wife being abducted by a terrifyingly powerful demon king?
The ultimate stress test.
Narada outlines this entire stress test for Valmiki. He recites what is known as the Sankshipta Ramayana, which is a condensed 100-sloka summary of Rama's entire life.
And the lineage of this story is fascinating. It's not just like some gossip Narada picked up on his travels.
No, it's highly sourced.
The tradition outlines a strict hierarchy of transmission. The original cosmic version of Rama's life was dictated by Hayagriva to Lord Brahma, and it consisted of an unfathomable 1 crore slokas. That is 10 million verses.
10 million verses represents the absolute, unfiltered truth of the universe, containing every microscopic detail and cosmic implication of Rama's existence.
It's too big to comprehend.
It is. Human consciousness, even that of a Brahmarshi like Valmiki, cannot process that volume of data. So Brahma digests that infinite truth and passes its essence to Narada.
And Narada acts as the editor.
Exactly. Narada, acting as the master editor, distills those 10 million verses down to exactly 100 perfectly chosen verses, custom-tailored to ignite Valmiki's specific imagination.
Narada delivers the summary, blesses Valmiki, and departs. And Valmiki is left in a state of absolute spiritual intoxication.
He's just reeling from the beauty of it.
His mind is completely saturated with the image of Rama. He is vibrating with the beauty, the tragedy, and the perfect harmony of this man's life. He is an emotionally open wound of devotion.
So carrying this elevated energy, Valmiki walks down to the banks of the Tamasa River for his midday bath. And the environment around the river is essentially a physical manifestation of his internal state.
Just totally peaceful.
The water is perfectly clear, the forest is quiet, the atmosphere is utterly serene.
As he is walking, his heightened senses lock onto a pair of crancha birds. These are cranes, renowned in poetry for their intense, lifelong devotion to their mates.
Beautiful birds.
Yeah, and Valmiki stops and watches them. They are engaged in a beautiful courtship dance, completely absorbed in the joy of their existence. And because Valmiki's heart has been blown wide open by Narada's story, he isn't just observing these birds. He is deeply empathizing with their joy.
He's feeling it with them.
He feels their connection as if it were his own.
And in the very next fraction of a second, that pristine serenity is violently destroyed. An arrow, fired from the dense underbrush, strikes the male bird directly in the chest.
It's so shocking. The male collapses into the dirt, thrashing in a pool of blood. The female bird, witnessing the sudden, brutal murder of her mate, descends in absolute hysteria.
She just loses her mind with grief.
She circles the dying male, shrieking in uncontrollable agony.
And the contrast is horrifying. Valmiki, who was just floating in the conceptual perfection of Rama's Dharma, is suddenly slammed into the raw, bleeding reality of senseless worldly violence.
It's a massive whiplash.
It really is. The tragedy bypasses his intellect entirely and strikes his newly sensitized heart.
Valmiki reacts with visceral fury. He snaps his head toward the bushes and sees a hunter stepping out, bow still in hand. Overwhelmed by the female bird's devastating grief, Valmiki opens his mouth, and a curse tears out of his throat. Manishada.
Which translates to, "You brutal hunter, you are heartless. You have killed this innocent male bird, separating a couple that was absorbed in love. Because of this unforgivable cruelty, you will be denied the span of life granted to you by God."
It is an explosion of righteous rage. But the moment the curse leaves his lips, the anger instantly evaporates, replaced by profound confusion.
He is shocked by his own words.
Yeah. Valmiki stops and replays the echo of his own voice in his mind. He realizes that in the height of his emotional breakdown, he didn't just scream a chaotic threat.
Where it was structured.
The words emerged from his mouth in a perfectly structured, mathematically precise rhythm.
He recognizes the cadence immediately. The curse flowed in the Anushtubh meter, which is 32 syllables, perfectly arranged into 4 quarters of 8 syllables each.
That is wild.
It is. He had involuntarily synthesized intense, raw emotion into flawless poetic form.
He accidentally invented poetry.
The Adhikavi.
And the linguistic connection here is the absolute core of the entire deep dive. The experts and the texts emphasize that the Sanskrit word sloka, meaning verse or poetry, is birthed directly from the word shoka, which means profound sorrow or grief.
Shloka, from Shoka. The very first poetry known to humanity was not the result of a conscious intellectual exercise.
He didn't sit down at a desk to write it.
No, it was not planned out on a slate. It was an involuntary overflow of overwhelming empathy. The pain was the molten metal, and the Anushtubh meter was the mold it accidentally poured into.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, if we connect this to the bigger picture. The irony of this moment is so thick it is almost difficult to process.
Oh, the irony is staggering.
Let's really look at who is doing the cursing here. The man hurling this curse at the hunter is Valmiki. But Valmiki used to be Ratnakara. He used to be a Nishada.
The exact same type of hunter.
He was the man hiding in the bushes, firing arrows into innocent creatures and human beings without a second thought.
It is the ultimate metric of his transformation. I mean, millennia ago, he murdered humans to feed himself and felt nothing but self-righteous justification.
Complete numbness.
And now he is so spiritually refined, his boundaries of self have dissolved so completely that the death of a single bird causes him an agony so deep it invents a new form of human expression.
It's beautiful but tragic.
He is cursing a hunter for committing the exact sins that defined his own past.
Do you need a broken heart to create true art? I mean, his empathy, which was once violently restricted to his immediate family, has expanded to encompass the entire cosmos.
It's totally universal now.
Hearing the story of Rama softened his heart, making him hypersensitive to the pain of the world. When that newly raw sensitivity collided with the death of the bird, art was the inevitable byproduct.
So Valmiki returns to his ashram, deeply unsettled. He possesses the perfect poetic vehicle, and his heart is a reservoir of profound emotion, but he doesn't know what to do with it.
He's all dressed up with nowhere to go.
Basically, he is a sage who accidentally composed a flawless verse out of anger. He needs divine authorization to channel this new tool.
And that authorization arrives in a deeply mystical vision. The tradition states that Lord Brahma, the creator god, manifests to Valmiki.
But this isn't a physical visitation.
Right. Brahma emerges from a lotus stem within the river of Valmiki's own mind's eye. It is an internal revelation.
Brahma speaks to Valmiki's consciousness, clearing the confusion. He explains that the spontaneous generation of the Anushtubh meter at the river was not an accident.
It was a setup.
Yeah. Brahma says, that rhythm was my design. I placed it on your tongue at the exact moment your heart broke so you would possess the perfect vessel.
Brahma then delivers the mandate. He commands Valmiki to take the 100-verse summary he heard from Narada and expand it into the definitive, massive history of Prince Rama, utilizing this exact new poetic meter. He tells him to write the Ramayana.
But Valmiki faces a massive logistical and narrative hurdle here. Narada provided an outline. An epic requires granular detail.
You need dialogue, scene descriptions.
Right. It requires internal monologues and a precise recounting of events that happened hundreds of miles away behind closed doors. Valmiki is a sage in a forest. How can he accurately report the private conversations of a king?
Brahma solves this with an astonishing boon. He promises Valmiki a level of omniscient clarity that is beautifully captured in a specific metaphor.
I love this metaphor.
Brahma says that the entire expanse of Rama's life, every public battle, every private tear, every hidden conversation, will become as clear to Valmiki as an amla, a gooseberry, resting in the palm of his hand.
The amla metaphor is just brilliant. If you hold a small, semi-translucent gooseberry in your hand, there are no hidden angles.
You can see everything.
You can rotate it, you can hold it up to the light to see its internal seeds.
Yeah.
You possess absolute, unimpeded visual dominance over the object.
It's total mastery over the subject.
Brahma is granting Valmiki's mind that exact level of dominance over the timeline of the Ramayana. He assures Valmiki no word that flows from your pen will be a lie.
Empowered by this boon, Valmiki prepares his workspace. He sits on sacred Dharma grass, performs the purifying Akamanam ritual by sipping water, and tunes his vision inward.
He's getting ready to download the universe.
And the way he experiences this story isn't like reading a scroll from beginning to end. He steps into a non-linear omniscient state. He experiences a multiverse vision of the epic.
Because he is tapping into the cosmic record, time essentially collapses for him. He sees the narrative everywhere at once.
Like a cosmic VR headset.
Exactly. He watches Rama's birth in Ayodhya while simultaneously witnessing Hanuman setting the city of Lanka on fire. He sees Sita's quiet despair and captivity at the exact same moment he sees the monkey armies building a bridge across the ocean.
It's all happening right now for him.
He is a divine reporter embedded in the center of a temporal hurricane, observing everything perfectly.
And with that absolute vision, he begins to write. He channels the profound empathy of his shoka into the flawless structure of the shloka, weaving the 24,000 verses of the Ramayana.
An incredible undertaking.
He organizes this massive download of information into distinct architectural blocks, known as khandas.
And the structure of the khandas is not arbitrary. It represents the sequential phases of Dharma and human endurance.
Break down the khandas for us.
The Balakanda establishes the foundation of Rama's divine nature and training. The Ayodhya Kanda represents the rupture of peace and the burden of duty.
The exile phase.
Right. Then the Aranyakanda is the crucible of the forest exile. The Kishkinda Kanda introduces cosmic alliances.
Meeting the monkeys.
Yes. The Sundara Kanda highlights the pinnacle of devotion through Hanuman's search, and the Yuddha Kanda is the violent, necessary resolution of cosmic imbalance.
But the most staggering literary detail is how the tradition maps Valmiki's original curse, the spontaneous outbursts at the river, directly onto the massive structure of the epic.
This blows my mind every time I think about it.
It is as if the entire 24,000-verse Ramayana was genetically encoded in that single four-line curse.
It is a phenomenal piece of ancient literary analysis. The scholars break down the curse word by word.
Wait, word by word?
Word by word. Manashada, addressing the hunter, maps to the Balakanda, where Rama is trained to hunt down the dark demonic forces that threaten the innocent.
Oh, wow.
Pratistam Twamagam, stating the hunter will not find peace, maps perfectly to the Ayodhya Kanda, where Rama's rightful peace and kingship are abruptly denied, forcing him into exile.
This is unbelievable. Keep going.
Saswati Sama, meaning for everlasting years, aligns with the Aranyakanda, representing the grueling, seemingly endless endurance of the forest exile.
Which felt like it would never end.
Exactly. Yet Krincha Mithunath, referencing the couple of Krauncha birds, maps to the Kishkinda Kanda. Just as the birds were violently separated, Rama must help the Monkey King Vali resolve a violent separation to forge the alliance needed to find his own separated wife.
The parallels are so precise.
Akam, meaning the one, maps to the Sundarakanda, which focuses entirely on the singular extraordinary journey of Hanuman across the ocean.
Hanuman's solo mission.
Yep. Avadhim, meaning you killed, is the Yuddha Kanda, the great war and the ultimate killing of the demon king Ravana. And finally, Kama Mohetam, meaning intoxicated by passion, is mapped to the events of the often debated Uttarakanda.
So the entire architecture of the epic was hiding inside a scream of grief.
It was the DNA of the whole story.
And it's crucial to note that Valmiki wasn't left alone to organize this massive endeavor. The tradition states that he had divine editorial assistance.
He had a great team.
Lord Brahma instructed goddess Saraswati, the embodiment of knowledge and language, to literally become the movement of Valmiki's tongue, guiding the poetic flow. And goddess Gayatri provided the supreme spiritual illumination to ensure the history remained perfectly true to the cosmic record.
And this is exactly why the Ramayana has endured for thousands of years. It is not just a dry historical recounting of ancient kings.
Not at all.
It is the perfect, divinely authorized synthesis of supreme cosmic truth and shattering human empathy. It was written by a man who possessed an intimate, terrifying knowledge of what it means to be the monster in the forest, and who utilized that dark past to deeply understand the necessity of perfect light.
It really is a staggering narrative arc. We begin with Riksha, the kidnapped prodigy who becomes Ratnakara, a man driven by famine to become a localized terror.
A highway robber.
He wraps himself in the delusion of Apatkala Dharma, convincing himself that providing for his family absolves him of murder. That delusion is surgically dismantled by Sage Atri, leaving him to face the horrifying, absolute isolation of his own karmic debt.
Unable to even pronounce a holy name due to the tamasic rot in his own throat, he relies on a phonetic illusion, chanting the word for death until it blurs into the word for salvation.
Marata Rama.
He entombs himself in an anthill, shutting down his biology entirely until millennia of friction burn away his past. He emerges as Valmiki, a twice-born sage, perfectly tranquil, until the story of Rama cracks his heart open just wide enough for the pain of a dying bird to pour in, accidentally forging the first poetry in human history.
And that pain becomes the blueprint for the Ramayana, which brings this massive ancient history right back into the lap of you, the listener, today.
It applies directly to us.
Because if you strip away the cosmic scales and the divine boons, Valmiki's story is the ultimate proof that your past is not a permanent prison.
The text insists that no matter how deep the Tamazic stain, no matter how thick the psychological fortress you've built to justify your worst actions, redemption is a mechanical possibility.
It just takes work.
It requires a brutal, unflinching reality check, and it requires agonizing discipline, but the human architecture is designed to allow for a second birth.
Valmiki proves that we don't just overcome our darkest chapters, we require them. His ability to write the ultimate manual on righteousness was directly fueled by his intimate knowledge of cruelty.
It gave him the context.
Right. He shows us that our greatest contributions to the world often don't stem from our moments of easy, unbroken joy. They are birthed from our brokenness.
They come from the pain.
They come from our ability to take our own excruciating pain and our raw sensitivity to the sorrow of others and forcefully alchemize it into something that heals the world. Shloka from Shoka. Poetry from pain.
It is the ultimate transmutation of darkness into light.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think back to our suspension bridge analogy at the beginning. We assume great things are built cleanly from scratch.
With pristine materials.
But Valmiki shows us that the most enduring structures are often forged from melted down scrap metal.
And that is a very powerful realization.
If a violent, desperate highway robber, choking on his own sins, contained the dormant potential to become the first poet of humanity, a potential just waiting to be unlocked by a harsh truth and the rhythmic repetition of a single word, what undiscovered world-changing potential is currently incubating inside of you?
Just waiting to be unleashed.
Exactly. What masterpiece is resting quietly beneath your own anthill, just waiting for the right moment of focus and the right moment of shattered empathy to be brought roaring into life?
A profound question to carry with you.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Until next time, keep exploring.
Thank you so much for listening. If this story touched your heart, please do subscribe and press the bell icon so